Welcome back to Huckleberry Bastion. So in this video, I'm going to show you a few things. I'll show you how to use your knife and some techniques that'll keep you safe and make for a more effective cutting. I'm also going to show you how to do a few common notches that you're going to use for things like traps or setting up your shelter, and just a bit about knife safety. When you're using a knife, of course you want to be safe, especially if you're alone out in the wilderness. And there's a few simple things that you can do and remember to keep yourself safe. One, most importantly, is the triangle of death. This area in between your legs. Now you have femoral arteries running down your legs, and if they get cut, you're in a lot of trouble, as I said in the Rambo video. So you're going to want to avoid using your knife to cut in there, because if you slip, it could go into your leg. An easy way to do that is simply keep your elbows near your knees. That way you're cutting outside of here. If there's any slips, I'm not cutting into my leg or into my body. So when you have your knife in your hand, generally you want to keep it like this. This is going to give you the most efficient cut. You're going to see some people putting their thumb up like this, but that's not quite as efficient as using it like this. Now, there are two techniques you can use to help you get cuts and help you stay safe, and they're the chest lever and the knee lever. And the knee lever is easy. You just kind of use your knee like this, put the knife up against it, and then you're pulling the material and not really moving the blade. So if there's any kind of slip or anything, you don't have any dangerous part of the blade coming towards your body, and it gives you a bit of leverage to really take large pieces of material off. Alternatively, you can use the chest lever, where you bring the knife up to your chest and just kind of chicken wing, and you're moving the material. You're not moving the knife, so that way you can stay nice and safe. And you can alternate between the two depending on if your wrist is getting tired and what's going on. Now, this technique is very useful for making some of your notches, and it's called batoning, and what it allows you to do is make a nice straight cut through the material. So what you need is a baton. It's just like a club, you know, for knocking heads in or whatever you have to do, but it's going to be sturdy, have a bit of length to it so you can get some good leverage and a bit of weight. Also, you're going to need a base. Now, that could be a rock or a piece of wood. I prefer to use a piece of wood. That way, if I cut through, I'm not putting the edge of my blade into the rock. And it just kind of acts like an anvil between your baton, your knife, and the material. Because if it's soft underneath, when you whack, all the energy is just going to be taken out of the blow. So let's give it a try on this piece of wood. And you're just going to hold the knife in your opposite hand. So if you're right-handed, you're going to hold the knife in your left hand. And then with your right hand, you're just going to come down on it, on the knife, the spine of the knife, with the baton. And this is where it's good to have a nice sturdy knife, nice thick, at least 1/8 of an inch or thicker, and no serrations or anything on the back, especially not a sharpened back. Nice flat back works great for batoning. You see, gives it a nice straight cut through. Now, using those techniques, I'm now going to show you how to make some simple notches that are very useful, and we're going to do it all on this stake. So first, of course, we're going to sharpen the stake, and we can use this technique where we're outside of the danger zone, or of course, let me reposition here. We can use a knee lever to just sharpen our stake. And you can bring it to a fine point if you want. Then on the other end, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of round off this edge. And what that does is it helps when you're beating stakes into the ground so that they don't split as much. And all you have to do is just kind of carving it in towards the edge a bit. You're not really sharpening it. and that's good enough for demonstration purposes. So the first notch we're going to make is the stake notch, and that's used for securing your line when you're setting up a tarp or something like that. And what it is just a simple straight stop cut, which we'll use a baton to create, and that stop cut just goes down maybe a third of the way into the stake. And then we're going to do a 45-degree cut from here to our stop notch, and we'll just use like a knee lever to make that cut. So first our stop cut. Now we don't want to go the whole way through, so that should be good. Now I'm going to cut 45-degree angle cut to meet our stop cut. There you go. Basic stake notch. So now that we have our stake notch cut, what we're going to cut now is a V-notch. Now a V-notch is useful as a toggle. You cut a series of those along a stick, and then you can move things like pans and any kind of thing to a different spot. So the way I'm going to make the V-notch is I'm going to cut a stop cut first, and that would be in the middle of the V, and then I'm going to cut my 45 angle this way, and then my 45 angle this way. So first we'll cut the stop cut using our baton. Now with our stop cut in place, I'm going to make a 45-degree angle cut here and a 45-degree angle cut here to meet the stop cut. Now for the other side. And you have a little V-notch. So next up is the cabin notch, and I used this when I was making the spring spear trap to attach two parts of the trigger system, and that's what it's used for. Just like when you're building a cabin and you want to put one log and then another log over that, this is the notch that you're going to use. Now to make it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a vertical stop cut using the baton, and then I'm going to make another vertical stop cut and then remove the wood in between the two cuts. Now when you're making this cut, it's always good to measure twice and cut once, and to remember that if it's too small and doesn't fit in with the other cabin notch that you made, you can always remove material, but you can never put material back. So always be careful when you're making this cut. Make sure you get the measurements right. Now we're going to make the first stop cut. Now the second. You want to bring these down to about the same depth. And then you're just going to remove the material in between. But sometimes I find it helps if you cut a few more stop cuts, that way you have less material to move. Now if you have a saw on like a multi-tool, or you just have your folding saw, it's much easier to make these kind of notches. But for today, we're learning how to make them using the knife, so that's what we're going to use. So that is your basic cabin notch. Now it's not pretty, but it gives you the idea. I'm sure that Morris Kohansky would be rolling over in his grave. Oh wait, I think he's still alive, so. But it'll get the point across. And the next notch that we're going to make is called the bail notch. And what that is good for is hanging pots and things like that over the campfire. And it's got kind of a little hook in it. And the way we make this one is by making 2 stop cuts. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the stop cuts in an X. We're going to make one this way, and then we're going to make one this way, and then we're going to remove the material from here down, but keep the little hook area at this end. So let's give that a try. So now that we have our 2 X's, we're going to remove material here and carve slightly up and under here. Now you can see I've created a little hook by just removing this part of the X, cutting this, and then scooping out the material under. We made a nice little hook so that if we were hanging this, could hang a pot or anything we needed off of that. This is just a fun little thing you can do when you're sitting around camp or even at home, is to make yourself a little practice stake like this. You can practice all the common notches, the stake notch, the V, the cabin, and the bail notch, and also your stake points and your stake end. You can practice the cuts, you can practice safe methods and find out what's most effective for you, and of course knife safety. Now this isn't the greatest example. I'm sure I'd probably get a pretty low grade if I went to some kind of bushcrafting school, but it is enough to give you an example of how everything is cut and the techniques you can use. And of course, always, the more you practice something, the better you're going to get. As always, I'd like to thank people for watching. This is kind of an important video because these notches, you learn to make those, they're going to help you with the future videos that we do, because you're going to find that we're using them over and over again. When we build our traps and when we do our shelters, we're going to be using one of these notches, if not more. But look, blueberries. Look familiar? And the blueberry is kind of the symbol for a huckleberry bastion. In some places they're called huckleberries, but here we generally just call them blueberries. And they're starting to come into season now. And they taste great. Ah! Ah! Ah!